बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाए जीरा से MTH का जलजीरा जीरा से
जीरा से असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MTH
Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has said that this is going to be a long war. And basically, if you see his tweets, I'll put out a graphic on a few tweets of his. He's preparing everyone. He says, no problems if oil goes over $100 a barrel. This is no problem, according to Trump. He said this is a small price to pay for the war. I put that differently. And he says anyone else who thinks it's anything more than a small price to pay is a fool. So Donald Trump believes that everyone except him across the entire world is a fool. Ladies and gentlemen, I reserve my words. I shall say nothing about Donald Trump. But I will say one thing tonight. He should rethink his words. When he thinks of the money that's wiped out, which rough estimate is 8.5 lakh crores, but this is a rough estimate. Let's keep moving the graphics, please. Ladies and gentlemen, when he says this is no problem, the war should continue for a long time, he must rephrase that. He should now begin to say that there is absolutely no problem anywhere in the world. If the whole world is in a state of shock, as long as Donald Trump's personal ego and narcissism is under control, as long as he's feeling all right personally, there is no problem. Ladies and gentlemen, when he says only fools would think differently, when he says it's a small price, let me tell you what small looks like. And that is the number, 8,50,000 crore rupees wiped out from the Indian markets. That is Trump's definition of small. We were not consulted. We were not warned. We simply are paying for his war. We are paying for his understanding of the way he thinks the world should be. Ladies and gentlemen, the one number that tells you everything about oil was $72 a barrel before the first missile flew. And look at it today. Nobody in the Gulf voted for this war. Today it has crossed $100 per barrel. Trust me, everybody, when they go to pick up petrol, diesel, are paying for it. You are paying for Trump's war. Our government is doing fine. We're doing the best. The government is doing the best it can in the prevailing circumstances. But somewhere we are all world citizens. Aren't we always told we are world citizens? We should have a say in what's happening in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sensex does not lie. The Sensex does not have a foreign policy. It doesn't have a side. Thousands of crores, ordinary Indians' savings, retirement money, all gone. Because America decided to settle a score. And now the media, the Western media, which has lost its spine a long time, is suddenly waking up to what we had asked earlier about an American missile hitting a school and killing 150 schoolgirls. That also, and you see the pictures of the children being buried. Dozens and dozens of schoolgirls for no fault of theirs. Full frame, please, when we get that visual. Full frame, please. This is the price of America's war. This is the price for Trump's ego. This is the price Trump thinks it's all right. It's all right. A Tomahawk missile, an American missile, allegedly hits a school and 150 school children die. He says it's not a Tomahawk missile. What is this? If it's not a Tomahawk missile, Donald Trump. Children playing in their school were killed, destroyed, lives destroyed, and then being buried one next to each other. Children who should have been in a school laboratory. schoolgirls who should have been doing physics and chemistry experiments, schoolgirls who should have been in the park, these schoolgirls all wiped out, all killed, and Trump says it's all right, it's a small price to pay. Now we can choose to be quiet about it. And you, if you're watching the program today, can say nothing happens. It's a small price to pay. But this, Donald Trump, is not a small price to pay. Especially because there is no end to this madness. And Trump has lost control, in my view. Trump was told one thing and something else is happening on the ground. Pete Hegseth told him, he's the Secretary for Defense. Pentagon reports to him. Pentagon and Pete Hegseth told Trump that this is going to be over within 2 or 3 days. And now they do not have an answer. They do not have an answer, so they do the Rambo number. And they say, be prepared for many more people dying, be prepared for mayhem, be prepared for oil shocks, be prepared for economic disruption, be prepared for everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not bothered about the cost for America. I'm bothered about the cost for all of us. And I'm truly concerned that unless the world comes together and says, Mr. Trump, you have been unable to carry out a regime change. And proof of that is Ayatollah Mojtaba being made the supreme leader. And Vladimir Putin sending him a letter, standing in solidarity with him and saying, congratulations on taking over. The regime change operation has failed. If anything, ladies and gentlemen, if anything, all this money being spent, all the innocent people being killed, an entire region and the rest of the world, more than 30 countries drawn directly or indirectly into a battle, all based upon some wrong advice that Trump went by when Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon told him this would be over in 3 days, and they cannot deny it. The American media should start questioning what is happening. Because today, everybody is already realizing the whole world is being told to pay the price. Even before the strikes happen, even before February 28th strikes, the global institutions were already talking about a deteriorating world economy. Now imagine, with the war in full swing, what happens to inflation? What happens to fuel prices? What happens to the possibility of a global recession? And for what? Because Donald Trump thought he could play Rambo. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia will pay the highest price. India has a huge exposure. Government's doing a great job, but our LNG imports are Gulf linked. We have emergency stockpiles. We are doing well, but all countries in Asia will be impacted. Ladies and gentlemen, civilians have been killed. I'm no peacenik. In fact, when it comes to strategic issues, I am a hawk. But this is a direct attack by the Americans, by all the people who are with them, who have no direct, clear strategic plan in sight. This is not about territory, this is about a regime change that's not happening, and hence the idea is to keep pulverizing Iran. If there's any plan that I see here, the only plan is pulverize Iran to a point where it basically turns around and says, we give up. And if that does not happen, is someone in the world going to ask Donald Trump and going to ask America, what is your plan B if that does not happen for 15 days? Ladies and gentlemen, the UN is not in control. All statements we are seeing from the WHO health facilities are protected under international law. But what has the UN, any UN agency, been able to achieve? They're talking about a major humanitarian emergency. Well, statements will mean absolutely nothing. The world is confused. It does not know how to deal with Donald Trump. Keir Starmer one day says, I'm not with America. Second day says, I'll send my warships. Then Trump tweets saying, no, thank you, I don't need your help. And now is consulting and thinking about the economic impact this is going to happen on the United Kingdom. But I say, Keir Starmer is right. He's thinking about his country. And slowly, this is the way it's going to play out. Every world leader will be forced within a week or 2 weeks to stop taking sides and thinking only about their country and their people. And eventually, beyond Trump land, beyond Mar-a-Lago, when this hits everyone across the world, when one realizes it's not about one supply chain, it's about one supply chain affecting another, then the world will have to come together and negotiate with Trump and tell Trump maybe this was not right. Maybe at some point of time you're going to have to call it quits. Dear viewers, we should not have to pay a price for Trump's plans going wrong. The people of America are already paying a price. Every single day, a country in huge economic crisis, with debt they cannot manage. Only the war machine, only the defense companies will benefit from this. And I'm saying this, I'm not a peacenik on strategic issues, I'm a hawk. But when you do not have a plan, when you don't have plan B, and when your actions are affecting not one country or two or a region, but the global economy, then someone is going to have to step in and, as they say, bell the cat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's debate.
From Saudi Arabia to Bahrain to Qatar, oil refineries have come under repeated attacks by Iranian drones. From day 1 to day 10, oil economy continues to bear the brunt. Burning refineries, creating a mini climate crisis. With operations now suspended at some facilities, oil supplies world over have been disrupted. And to compound the mess, Iran has declared Strait of Hormuz as a war zone. The result, surging crude price. Brent is currently trading at $107 to a barrel after nearing almost $120 earlier in the day. This marks largest single-day gain since 2020. As world markets sneezed, the Lali Street caught cold. At closing today, Sensex was down nearly 1350 points at 77,566, while Nifty 50 tumbled over 422 points at 24,028. Now compare these numbers to pre-war time. A week before, Sensex stood at 83,294. The result, a brutal sell-off and a total wipeout of rupees 8.5 lakh crores. Oil marketing companies, banking stocks, airline stocks all have taken a hit. Indian rupee has also weakened. Hitting a record low, rupee fell 0.6% to 92.34 per dollar. But for the man who started this war, US President Donald Trump, it's a small price. He goes a step ahead, saying only fools will think differently. Or this man, who has been blasting allies and enemies alike, Senator Lindsey Graham. He reportedly does not approve of Israel's strikes on oil depots in Iran. Trump also blasted the UK Prime Minister, saying US does not need people who join wars after they have won. And amid all this, Iran has thrown a dare, electing Mojtaba, disapproved by Trump, as its next supreme leader. Clearly, this war is not over anytime soon.
First set of guests today, Ajay Bagga, very great macro voice from India, right? We have Ali Rizk. He's a security and political analyst from Beirut. Dr. Wael Awad, he's a great expert in West Asia. He's joining us from Delhi. Saurabh Shukla, of course, everyone knows him, needs no introduction, Editor-in-Chief News Mobile, our Chief Consulting Editor. We have John Rosomondo. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you?
He's a geopolitical expert. He's joining us. I'm not sure if your location, John, where you're living and joining us from this evening.
Washington, D.C.
Washington. Thank you. From D.C. And Dean Baxendale is with us. He is joining us from Canada. And he's the CEO of Operimum Publishing International and a partner in Navgis Advisory. Great geopolitical voice. Thank you. Now, I want to start with you, John, because this is now very concerning. See, the things have gone bad. It's beginning to hit people. It's the second week now, sort of early into the second week. Oil prices are going out, absolutely crazy. And Trump says anybody who thinks this is a big deal is a fool. How does one handle that situation, John?
Well, let me just put it this way. The United States Iran's been waging a war against the United States for 47 years. It's the single largest supporter of jihadi terrorism across the globe. It's been a disruptive regime, kind of similar to your relationship with Pakistan. That's been Iran's relationship with the United States. President Trump has finally decided that it's time to do something what his predecessors didn't do, to the point that Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. We've seen Iran open fire on countries in the Gulf that didn't want war, that negotiated and tried to make peace. Imagine if it had a nuclear weapon. It probably wouldn't show much restraint and would resort to nuclear blackmail. So President Trump, I think, is engaging in a policy to end that. I mean, he's trying to end an endless war. There's always economic ramifications. There are economic ramifications when the U.S. went to war with Iraq. This is something that the market will absorb, and the energy price spike is only temporary.
Let me go across. Yeah, I will go across, Aditi. Can you just calm down, all of you in the PCR, please? I'd like to go to Hamid Raza Ghulamzadeh. Hamid Raza, he's director of Diplo House, live from Tehran. I hope I got the name right, Hamid Raza ji. Now, very good. Now you heard the voice, John Rosomondo. His view is that this has gone on for too long between your country and the US. This had to be sorted out. And if it takes time to iron things out, it's all right. Now, our concern is, Hamid Raza, that we would like to see an end in sight. What is the view in Tehran? Is there an end in sight? What's the plan Iran has?
First of all, we should remember that this war was started by the American-Israeli regimes, and they were responsible
Locations,
for
please, Tehran.
He just mentioned that Iran is attacking the neighbors, which is a wrong interpretation of what is happening on the ground. Iran is defending itself against American interests and American bases in the region, from which attacks and aggressions have been launched. And let's not forget that it was actually those countries who have given their lands and their airspace to Americans to use them against us. And defending one's own country is a legal right that every country has. And we are doing that. We are attacking American bases, we are attacking American interests and Israeli interests in the region. And anyone who is helping this aggression against Iran. So there is no attack against the neighbors themselves. Iran has had this power for so many years, and if it wanted to attack its neighbors, it would have done it much earlier, and no one could stop them. but Iran did not want at all to attack the neighbors, as it has clearly mentioned that. So with the current situation, the only option that would be possible for an end to this war would be closure of all these American bases in the region, especially in those Arab countries, where they are threatening not only Iranian security, but also the security of those Arab countries, which they were supposed to actually protect, and they did not protect. Even they gave the green lights to Israeli regime to attack Qatar last year. And it is a threat to the global economy.
That's a very long... Hamid Raza, can I just ask you more pinpointedly? How long can Iran fight this? Because Trump's intention is to break you down. Break you down, pulverize you, hit all your key installations to a point where you are left with no infrastructure and you have to surrender.
Iran has prepared itself for a war from 6 months up to 10 years. You can remember
6 months
that
to
we had
10 years?
8 years of war.
Are you saying you
Up
can
to 10
keep
years.
fighting between 6 years to 10 years?
6 months to 10 years.
One minute.
Don't,
Ali
don't
risk,
forget,
1 minute.
don't
I'm looking at that. Because as you say that, our guests in Canada and the US are smiling. Are smiling. But Saurabh, just wait a while. Ali risk. Is that an overstatement by our friend from Tehran that we'll fight America for 6 months to 10 years? Can they ever conceivably do that? Can they even last 6 weeks? Ali.
I think my colleague in Tehran knows more about that particular issue than I do. But I will remind everyone who was watching that Iran did fight an 8-year war against Saddam Hussein. Now, that was a very long time. Of course, some would argue that the firepower which America and Israel possess far outweighs the firepower which Iran possesses. But again, I think that you can't compare the Iranian military during the Saddam era to the Iranian military right now. Iran, of course, has a much more advanced military today, I would assume. It's also exported its own weaponry to Russia. We saw how it's exported drones to Russia. So it is a military power to be reckoned with. Now, I'm not going to make estimations or predictions, whether it be months or years, but I would assume that Iran does have the ability to wage a quiet, long war. And I think the more important question is, how far can the Americans wage this war? I'm not talking here about munitions or weapons. I'm talking about casualty sensitivity. Now, there have already been, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 8 American soldiers who've lost their lives as a result of this war. And remember, this is not about American national interests or security interests. There was no September 11, nothing of the sort. This is about Israeli interests. So for how long can America continue to wage a war, which is for the sake of Israel?
Can I go back to our friends in the US? I'm joined by Major Mike Lyons. He's a US-based defense strategist. I have Dean Baxendale, who was smiling away when you said 6 months to 10 years. Why, Dean? The response that came from our friend from Beirut. And by the way, I have visuals from Beirut. Can we not show those earlier visuals and run? I have 2 visuals I want to show tonight. First, let's take a look at, this is a live feed that Republic is getting from Beirut. That is where Ali sits tonight. Now, the West will have to handle the situation. Imagine if this was Washington. With all respect, everyone, would John be relaxed sitting in Washington, D.C. if this was happening in Washington? But we have a hardened people here in a war-torn area. Ali sits completely comfortable. Can we have those visuals, please? Highlight it. Don't show the Fujairah visuals. Niranjan, focus on the visuals I'm talking about. Tell the producers not to show 2 windows at this time. Thank you. Now, if this was Washington, D.C., John, you wouldn't be sitting there chilling. Dean, if this was some city in Canada where you're from, you wouldn't be chilling. But you see, maybe there's that miscalculation that the West has made about Iran. And he also said Dean, they said they fought an 8-year war with Iraq.
Thank you, first of all, for having me on again. Listen, this is, the war is unfolding in the Gulf, and it should not be viewed through a series of isolated strikes here. What Israel and the United States are doing is simply executing part of a multi-layered strategic campaign designed to degrade Iran's capacity to project power across the region. The objective here extends beyond battlefield effects. It's targeting regime, military infrastructure, proxy networks, and the financial lifelines that sustain this group, which is linked directly back to China and the CRINCS alliance. This is about restoring deterrence, protecting global energy flows, and signaling to the wider authoritarian axis that destabilization of the international order comes with a significant cost for everyone. And so I think that people should understand that this war will be short from the American perspective. It will be less than 6 weeks. And without regime change, I think nothing can happen positive for the people of Iran in the long run. So I think that's
what if the people of Iran, Dean, the other visual, Dean, we saw pictures here. You may say they are contrived, but I saw these visuals that came in of thousands of. I'll show you another visual. Thousands and thousands of Iranians on the streets in support for Mojtaba, Ayatollah Mojtaba today. Those visuals came in today, right? Now.
Yeah, we had 100,000 on the street in Montreal this weekend.
But Montreal, you tell the Iranians in Montreal will not go to Iran.
In Toronto, in support of the Islamic Republic.
The Iranians in Montreal want to live in Canada. They don't want to go to Iran.
This is notionally not correct. Iranians that are in Montreal and are diaspora community members who have been excluded and pushed out of Iran because they're viewed different from this brutal regime.
Dean, let's be realistic out here. They're very comfortable in Canada. They have a Canadian life. Those Iranians in America have American life. I was on the border with Beirut
less than a month ago.
They don't want to go. Raza Pahlavi, for example, who was being projected, Major Leon's, as an alternative. Does he have the guts to go to Iran today? What happened to Raza Pahlavi? 2 weeks back, he was being touted as the returning Shah. What happened to that plan?
Yeah, I'm not sure he was ever considered to be a viable option by this administration. I thought they were trying to do what happened in Venezuela. They were looking for somebody to possibly take over in Iran. Much more difficult situation given the fact that this regime has been in place for 47 years. Iran is the #1 U.S. foreign policy failure since the Second World War. And so this is going to be a lot more difficult than just thinking that we're going to insert somebody into that government and that society thinking they're going to be the leader there. So they'll find someone, but this is not stopping until the United States finds somebody that says we surrender, or it's crystal clear that their strategic objectives have been accomplished.
Now, one minute. There's, by the way, Ali is in poor light right now. Not poor light literally, but he's in a poor lit situation rather, because he's in Beirut where there's bombing going on. You have the visuals, you can play the visuals in a bigger way. You can show him on the left and, okay, whatever. Now, Ali, what's happening around you? I mean, you switched off your light there. Is that part of a bomb alert situation?
No, this is not part of a bomb alert. In Beirut, unfortunately, we do get power outages sometimes.
So there's a simple power outage. Okay. Well, the pictures are live. Thanks for clarifying that. Now, Ajay, if you look at the overall situation, I want to go to Ajay in Mumbai. See, today, the world economy was anyway not in a good shape, Ajay. If this goes on for a month or 2 months, who will be hit more, Iran, America, or any other specific region?
I think it's across the world. Today, the Europeans have voiced a lot of discomfort at oil prices going to $120, $125. So it's going to be across the world, Arnab. Oil has become a transmission mechanism by which all these issues are getting transmitted to the global economy. India is importing 85% of our oil consumption. A lot of it comes from the Gulf, which has got disrupted. And India is facing those issues. If this continues for a year, we will see a 2% drop in our GDP. That's the clear calculation we have. It will cost us, if oil stays at this price, it will cost us about $70 billion more in the rest of the year. And if this stays for a year, our GDP goes down by 2%. So clearly a lot of consequences around the world. Trade has got weaponized, oil has got weaponized, and a regional conflict is having issues across the world because there are no alternatives to the Middle East oil, Middle East gas. Normally, if, say, a Libyan production went down, the Saudis and UAE had extra oil which they could start producing, or the Russians could step in. The Russians have been sanctioned out of the global trade scheme, and now the Middle East has gone out. So it is a very delicate situation, very vulnerable situation for global markets, global economies.
Now,
yes, sir.
Now, I want to go back to John. John, explain this to me. Is there some desperation now also hitting the US and Israel? Otherwise, why are desalinization plants being hit? Desalinization plants are critical infrastructure for people. People need water. Is the idea to hit the people of Iran in order to force a regime change? Is that the idea here?
Well, the idea is to deprive the IRGC of anything that it can use for sustaining its soldiers, sustaining its war effort. Let's just put it this way. The Iranians could have given up support of their mercenary armies, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Hashd al-Shabi. They could have given up their ballistic missiles or their nuclear weapons and become a normal nation. They chose not to. And as a result, they've been fighting a war against the region for 47 years, and it's time to end it. I mean, my colleague here says that they're going after American bases. I never knew that, five-star hotels in Doha, in Dubai, in Kuwait, and other civilian targets that aren't necessarily American are legitimate targets. I mean, I think that they went and started.
May I just John, ask you a question? I mean, this very interesting point that you said that Iran should become a normal nation and stop supporting the Hezbollah and Hamas. Let me tell you, I'm no fan of Hezbollah and Hamas, and I also believe that Iran and other countries behind it, which are using Iran as proxy like China, should stop funding the Hamas and Hezbollah. Having said that, is Pakistan, which Trump loves, a normal nation? They're the country which has housed Osama bin Laden, built a huge mansion for him. They are financing the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is a sanctioned terrorist group, the Hizbul Mujahideen, and the Lashkar-e-Taiba. And is Pakistan a normal nation when it sent its terrorists of these groups, financed by them, to come across to India, to catch tourists in a tourist spot in Kashmir, ask them to recite certain Quranic verses, to recite the Kalma, which if they weren't, then they were shot through the head. So and the person who did all this, the person who carried all of this out, is a man called Asif Munir, who goes and has stake with Donald Trump inside the White House. How is Pakistan a normal nation by that definition? I mean, don't make this a moral argument, John, because it's not. It's not a moral argument. It's about oil. It's not a question about right and wrong. It's about oil.
So Pakistan has not waged a 47-year war against the United States. I mean, I'd have to say that when it comes to Pakistan, you're not going to get an argument.
I think you've got it. No, you don't need to give me a lot. But John, let me remind you how weak you are as a country. You are so weak that the country which actually sponsored and gave a home to Osama bin Laden, right? And kept him there. And he killed 3,000 people at the World Trade Center, which even today Hillary Clinton uses as an excuse to defend herself in an Epstein case. Let me tell you, where is the morality in this? You please understand, please understand. No, 1 minute. Please understand here that you are so weak as a nation that when you could have taken a position saying we are going to end the scourge of terrorism, you should have started with Osama bin Laden. You didn't do that. You did not do that, and the sponsors of Osama bin Laden, despite knowing that Osama bin Laden carried out 9/11, you still did not act. But so this is because Pakistan was not about oil. Here it's about oil, John. Listen. Now tell me, John, you say it's not a small price. I ask you a simple question. 150 Iranian schoolgirls killed by a Tomahawk missile, reported across the American media today. Reported across the American media today, across the American media with video footage.
Which is controlled by the Iranian regime. We have no idea where that video came from. And the fact is that the Iranian regime first declared in a Farsi language post on Telegram that they did it, then they turned and blamed the United States. So I think that we need to look at the fact that we should give zero credibility to anything that the Iranian regime has to say.
But this is the New York Times. Is the New York Times part of the Iranian regime?
The New York Times is not a reliable source of information.
As opposed to what? The Sun?
I said that the New York Times is a partisan, left-wing organization. I know people who worked at the Times who were taken from terrorism duty and made to cover local news because she got the news right on ISIS and jihadism. So we're dealing with a partisan political outfit that should be taken with a grain of salt.
Okay, I think Iranian from Iran, Tehran, Hamid Raza wants to say something to you in response. Why they're coming to you in a bit? Yeah.
I wanted to ask the question: Where does the Secretary of Treasury of the United States stand? Is it a leftist person? Is it a partisan person who says that clearly and bluntly? He says that they are after Iranian oil, and we're hearing the lecture here without listening to that actually. That it's about rights and such things. Iran has never attacked the United States, and Iran has not staged war against anyone, not only for the past 47 years, but also for the whole century. So this is all about oil. And it is something that the Secretary of Treasury of your administration has mentioned that. Is he New York Times? Is he leftist? Is he partisan person?
Well, let me give you some context here, my friend. Your economy is practically dependent on oil. If we blockade your oil, your ability to spread your terrorism. 900 Americans are dead because of the IRGC. Going back to 1983, when the IRGC funded...
Is CNN also... Is CNN also a radical left outfit? CNN also? Okay. And New York Times also. So New York Times is lying, CNN is lying, Axios is also lying? Axios?
Well, let's put it this way. You're relying on a bandwagon. Let's look at the original source, which is the Mehr news agency, which is completely controlled by the Iranian government. So consider the original source.
But John, John, I only go by the facts. You know, and I know, and everyone knows, and Trump knows, that you lied about weapons of mass destruction in the past.
No one does.
And you got Tony Blair. No, but you lied about it because you wanted the oil.
Well, let's put it.
No, you lied about it because you wanted the oil.
You know where the original sources were? It was from the Iraqi National Congress, which was run by Ahmed Chalabi, who is linked with Iranian intelligence. The Iranians fed the disinformation to our agencies, and you ended up with a group thing situation at the CIA. The people at the top in the Bush administration didn't know that curveball was fake intelligence. They didn't know, other thing. They trusted the wrong people and saw what they wanted to see because the Iranian regime used the Iraqi National Congress to feed disinformation.
No, but many countries. Okay. See, I'm not quarreling with you on this. I'm going deeper into the subject with Dr. Wael Awad. My only concern is right now. See, if this was a regional battle between you and Iran, you can fight for a century. We don't care. But this is becoming a global war affecting the entire planet. And Trump is having to eat his own words because he's now finding ways to get people to buy Russian oil. 1 month back, he said anyone who buys Russian oil is supporting Putin's war machine. Now he wants to fund Putin's war machine. So it makes not making any sense to me anymore, at least. I don't know whether Americans it makes sense to. Dr. Wailawat, do you see an end in this? What's the way out?
Well,
now?
let me start the discussion, Arnab, which I was listening to you very carefully. In fact, I was embedded with the American troops in 2003, and the stereotype replica of what they have done in Iraq is exactly what's happening right now. And what we have seen, in fact, over the years, that even Colin Powell, he apologized after he lied to the international community, and he said we were going for weapon of mass destruction, but it was only the oil luster and the gold of Iraq that they were after. And then now, till now, Iraq oil and Iraq selling is everything by dollars. Even if you want to give an Iraqi student or teacher his salary, you have to get the treasurers of the United States approval before he issued the check for the Iraqi to get his money, his own money. This is one of the issues. The second issue, which is there is no justification whatsoever in any history book, in any legitimate, in any normal behavior, if in anywhere in the world that you can say that this is a legitimate war. It is illegal war. It's a violation of all international law. It is a violation of all Geneva Convention. It's everything you name it. It is above the law. That's what the American president thinks, that he is above the international law. And the worst part, actually, Arnab, right now for all of us is that this, in the corridors of the power, you see people are having a dangerous fusions of taking place of an ancient religious narrative weaponized to justify the modern strategic ambition. So for the United States and for the American or for the Western media, they only think that using the uranium enrichment to terrorism threat serve as a respectable cover, objective that they would unacceptable if they stated plainly. So this is what is happening in our region. We have seen it before, we have seen it now, and what the American did. And how can you deny attacking a school, killing 168 children between the age of 10 and 12? The president himself was lying. His war minister, secretary was lying. Even Michael Pompeo said it on record that we lie and lie and lie till we think that we are saying the truth. He said we lie.
No, but the Americans did lie. And this word lie may seem extreme. But you must see major lies. So see, the Americans have lied. They lied about Iraq in 2002, 2003. They lied. LIED lied. They lied with a straight face, and then they had to apologize for it. They lied because they wanted to target Saddam Hussein. Now what they did in Iraq, they're doing in Iran. They're lying. Now my point here is, Major Mike Lance, John and Dean, this is not your war. If the world is paying a price, this is not your war. You started this, we're going to have to end it. Saurabh, this is not looking good for America. This is day 8, day 9. Day 10 actually, this is day 10.
Yeah, day 10. I'll tell you what's happening on the ground. At the outset, I have to compliment you on a stellar panel, by the way. This is amazing to get all the views
Nobody
together.
likes me on my panel this evening anyway.
But that's fine. We have to get diversity of opinion. And I can tell you what's happening on the ground. When President Trump was given the choice, it was a difficult choice because Iran, with a rogue regime, with the nuclear terrorism and the blackmail that it was resorting to, God forbid if Iran had a nuclear weapon, you would have seen nuclear holocaust of the manner in which they are hitting civilian targets across the Middle East. If you ask me, that is something which is being touted here in DC and by the administration, because obviously things would have been disastrous. What happens from here? President Trump is a president who's mindful of economic consequences more than any other US president. He faces a midterm in November. What will happen, if you ask me, as situation stands now, there will be an attempt in the next few days to make sure that the campaign is intensified, so there is a semblance where they can dismantle the IRGC assets without much of either civilian casualties or the American military casualties, because obviously he's one president who is also driven with how the stock market operates, how the energy prices go up. So all that, if you ask me, are going to have an impact.
I agree. No, I agree he's going to escalate this. But escalate without an end?
Allow me one last thing.
Escalate without an end?
You made a very important point. You made a very important point on whether he was misinformed or whether any of his advisors, did not advise him well. He's also somebody who has this whole set of people around him called Trump whisperers. So what will happen in the next few days is that when they reassess what's going to happen in the war, they may reassess their choices as well, and that's where the new strategic options may set in. So that's my overall analysis of the situation as it exists today. But as you know, as student of strategy, and I know as a student of international relations, obviously it's an evolving situation, and any war anywhere in the world has a global and a deeper impact on every country across the globe.
You know how the joke goes, God created war so Americans could learn geography. I think that was Mark Twain, it was attributed to. That God created war so Americans could finally learn some geography. But this is serious. I mean, this is not a targeted regime change war. I just want to ask our friend in Tehran, Hamid Raza, see, do these 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people reflect the will of the people of Iran? Could at some point of time the pressure become too much? Just too much on the people of Iran, that what America is hoping will happen may happen on the ground.
No, it won't. Because let's walk through the history. After the Islamic Revolution, which was actually totally a challenge for the country, we had 8 years of war imposed on us by Saddam. And we had sanctions imposed on us. And we had parts of the country actually detached by the separatist groups, and we had terrorist groups inside the country, and we had many heads of the official and heads of the government assassinated by those terrorist groups. And at that time, I remember that time, actually I was born at that time, I remember that how life was difficult, and people were united around the concept of the Islamic Republic, and they wanted this system. And they have stood for that for all past 47 years. And they have fought for that, and they have given lives for that. And they are now on the streets to protect that. Just this afternoon, I was in the downtown Tehran in symbolic Mojtaba Square, where people were gathering to pay allegiance to Mojtaba Khamenei. And at the same time, you could hear explosions in parts of the city. And people were not giving any attention to that. They are very ready to give their lives for the country. So they can adhere to those few number of people in Vancouver or in Washington or in Los Angeles or whatever. Yes, there are oppositions to the Islamic Republic, as any other country has opposition. We cannot deny that.
Has the opposition increased or lessened since 28th?
Sorry?
The opposition groups, which you say in every country there are opposition. There's opposition to Ayatollah Khamenei's regime, also to the Islamic regime also. Has that opposition become more or less after the 28th? Less. How would you react to that, Dean?
The unity right now
Dean?
in Iranian society is
You're saying the unity around the present regime has increased. Dean, you buy that?
Listen, I think that's a patently false notion. I think there are, significant groups. Maryam Rajavi, who's part of the NCRI, they held their global town hall, with support from over 4,000 parliamentarians in supporting a regime change that would bring democracy to the people of Iran, rather than a theocracy that has been the state sponsor of terror for over 45 years, has targeted Canadians, Americans, Europeans, and created great crisis and instability. This is a war about stability in the long run. I think people should learn to stay the course, but there is significant political opposition to this regime.
But that was said when you lied about WMDs and Iraq also. You said, Ajay, I want to get brief. Isn't that what the Americans said? This is about stability in the long term?
That Maryam Rajavi group is responsible for at least 17,000 assassinations inside Iran. They have killed their own citizens. At least 17,000 people have been killed by that group. So how can it rule the country?
Okay, Major Mike Lyons, is there a military plan here? we are very keen to know whether there is a plan that Pentagon has, because when I see Pentagon's boss, that is Peak Hazard speak, I do not see a plan. I see a lot of rhetoric, but I don't see a clear strategy, even if he chooses not to reveal it.
Yeah, there absolutely is a plan. And I participated in an air war that in 1991, Desert Storm, where for 37, 38 straight days, we bombed and took out very tactical strategic targets inside of Iraq back then. So right now, this is an air war that's taking place. Now, we've never won an air war only, and Iran is looking to probably do kind of an air war of attrition, which has also never been done historically. But the plan is to take out every military, nuclear, and any kind of target that we see is a threat. You're talking before about this war being about oil. It's about nuclear weapons. It's about not having Iran having a nuclear capability. I do think we'll eventually have to put some level of troops on the ground to go make sure that Iran doesn't have those troops, that doesn't have that capability and doesn't have that ability to redo their nuclear program. But war is an extension of foreign policy. I think this administration tried to negotiate, didn't get what it wanted, and now it's unleashed its military might.
No, but you said there's a strategy. Explicit regime change goal has absolutely not happened. There's an open-ended timeline. That's my concern. Is this an open-ended timeline?
No, I don't think that the administration cares if someone from the current regime is the new leader, as long as the new leader is going along with what the administration wants, which is no nuclear capability, no state sponsor of terrorism, become a productive member within society. The smartest thing that they could find is somebody that says we surrender, because once that happens, you come on the side of the United States. Look what happened after the Second World War. Look what happens if you're a United States ally. I think that businesses would pour in. I think the oil business would completely boom for Iran. I think things would be a lot better. Iran's picked the wrong proxies. They've picked the wrong supporters in China and Russia, frankly. The Chinese military equipment didn't work. The Russian military equipment doesn't work. It never has worked. It hasn't worked. It doesn't work in Ukraine. So again, if Iran decided that they wanted to become
I find your comparison to Operation Desert Storm without any context, because there was a trigger there, because there was an attack on Kuwait. Here there was no attack. There's no immediate. In 1991, when you say you participated in that war, please understand, sir, that the trigger was that in the previous year, later part of the previous year, Saddam Hussein suddenly decided to forcefully occupy Kuwait. Right? So you could go in saying we are protecting regional stability, but in this case there isn't. So in this case, it is about oil.
No,
it is about oil.
No, in this case, this is Iran at its weakest moment militarily. It's at its weakest time after what happened 6 months ago.
If they're so weak, then why haven't they capitulated yet?
If you're going to use the military,
Sir, I ask you, tell me one thing. You said Afghanistan is weak. Did you win Afghanistan? Did you win Vietnam?
No, those wars were defined completely differently than what's being defined.
No, sir, you sprayed napalm all over Vietnam.
Those wars were
you spread napalm all over Vietnam, but you still lost.
Yeah.
So you spread napalm, and you thought you thought the people would capitulate, but did you win Vietnam?
Again, the United States is not perfect. That war started out with one set of objectives.
I'm aware, sir, but
morphed into 14 years.
I'm aware, sir, you're not perfect. I'm more than aware.
Foreign policy failure for the United States.
Ajay.
Arnab, also the playbook is very clear. The way Ukraine was let down. After the Minsk Accords, all the nuclear bombs were taken away from Ukraine. UK and America gave them a written assurance that we will come to your aid. And then Obama let Putin walk into Crimea. And again, we are seeing the same thing. So, moment you give up your nuclear, you are finished.
No,
that playbook is very clear to everybody.
Lindsey Graham, who's worryingly called the conscience of Trump, says now that U.S. will control Iranian oil, and then Venezuelan oil, they'll control 31% of the world's oil.
So it's not about democracy, Arnab.
It's not about
American values. It is about American power. It is about American power, very clearly. We have seen in Venezuela, Delcy is the vice president of Maduro.
No, this
she
is
has
now
been put in charge. It's the same people, same minister.
My concern is that the
Interior.
worst trigger happens, then things go out of control. It's a more nuclearized world now.
I had a different point since we are, this debate is taking different opinions. One of the big, and I wanted to talk to the Iranian panelists today, that you said that there is great support for the regime. Let me tell you what's happened to your national women's soccer team, which is seeking refuge. The kind of atrocities which this regime has done against women, 35,000 civilians have been killed. You cannot explain that, sir.
Okay, so it's a good point, but I'm totally out of time. I will pick this up. Ladies and gentlemen, I should wrap up by saying, we don't need to all pay the price. This is not 1991. This is not 2002. This is a more connected world. It's a more nuclearized world. It's a more dangerous world. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to draw the red line at some point. Thanks for watching tonight. I'll see you tomorrow without fail. Good night and goodbye.
For a quick breather, Arnab will be right.
प्यास बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाए जीरा से MTH का जलजीरा जीरा से
जीरा सिप असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MTH